Women in the Bible, women in the Bible, women in the Bible, women in the Bible. Deborah is a woman in the Bible. Ruth, woman in the Bible. Gertrude, not a woman in the Bible. Lucy, not a woman in the Bible. Well, I think also Lucy and Gertrude can still be recognized for something. Today, we are commemorating International Women's Day, and I thought it would be really wise and timely to celebrate some of the women who demonstrated faith, left a legacy, and lots of lessons to be learned by us. I know many are the times that we read and we see and we hear people saying, are you a Proverbs 31 woman? That is not like a Proverbs 31 woman, or someone saying, I want to be a Proverbs 31 woman. But I think there are so many women in the Bible that we can learn from. There are so many women in the Bible, right from the book of Genesis to the end. So today, in celebration of International Women's Day, I thought it will be good to learn women in the Bible. I know you might not be a woman in the Bible, but I mean, we can learn from all these women such that when our time is gone, people can also celebrate us as we celebrate some of these women. My name is Gertrude. If you're new here, karibu sana. This is a channel where we talk about everything positivity, do everything creativity as we exalt Christ. First thing first, I realized today I saw this dress. I wasn't really intending to wear it, but I saw it and I considered wearing it. And also I'm having a situation in my head, like my hair. I'm having some sort of a bad hair day. I'm actually about to go to the salon. And I thought of putting on this turban. And this mix is a mix I think I could have done in like my first video. So you can go to my first video, actually my second video. So and I was ranting in that video about a lost phone. I can remember clearly. And fun enough, my friend just lost her phone the other day. One of my friend and colleagues who's also a content creator. So I don't know, like I'm those people who look at patterns and I'm like, what does this mean? So I chose to wear this dress and also put up a turban. I'm not sure if it was this exact turban, but I had a turban. So I was trying to recreate the moment. That aside, I thought we should take a break on the series that we are having on reflecting on my 20s and navigating as I navigate my 30s on different aspects of life, and take time to celebrate women, of course, because it's Women's Day, and also because why not? Why not? Considering I'm a woman, and also because I know and believe that women are special and ought to be celebrated. I have handpicked a few women whom I feel like when I read their story, I am able to really see areas where I get inspired. Not to say that other women don't inspire us. There is a lot to learn from each and every woman in the Bible, right from Eve, forgive me, right from Eve to the very end of the Bible. Of course, even the ones that were villains in the story, there's always something to learn. As small as learning not to be like them. Yeah. So I'll be mentioning a few women, and as I'm doing this, I once had a woman say, I don't think I'm the Proverbs 31 woman, and there has been a lot of pressure for women to be the Proverbs 31 woman. I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to be like her, but there's a lot of areas where you read and you're like, wow, that's burdensome. Not even in a very rebellious way, but you're like, but I'm not that, like feeling like you fall short of that kind of a woman. So sometimes we get really stuck to that one woman that we forget there are so many examples throughout scripture to be emulated. And today I'm just here to unearth some of these portions of scriptures where we can see women who did remarkable things that are worth emulating and learning from. So I'll go right into it. I'm going to share some of the women beyond and over and above the Proverbs 31 woman. So we'll start. I'm starting with Rahab. If you know Rahab, Rahab was a prostitute, and she was able to help the spies. The story of Rahab is found from the book of Joshua, chapter 2 to 6. Around that part. And please remember that this is the second account of spies. The first spies went to spy on the promised land in the book of Numbers 13 and 14. So this is a second group of spies. So Rahab was able to save the spies. He was able to hide them, and then he was able to ask them to pass through. Was it the gator? And then he asked them to save him. She was a Canaanite again. This act was an act of courage, it was an act of faith, and it enables him to find herself in the genealogy of Jesus. She's saved, and she through that she finds herself in the genealogy of Jesus. She's also mentioned in other parts of the scriptures, including Hebrews chapter 11 verse 31. Of course, that's the hall of fame. In Matthew chapter 1 verse 5. What lesson do we learn from her? We learn that you are able to receive redemption through faith, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your past, regardless, of course, of your nationality. There is hope for everyone as long as you believe, as long as you have faith in God, and most importantly now in Jesus Christ. Then we go to Deborah. Deborah was a judge and a prophetess, and she's one of the women that I really see myself through her. And through her act, she was a brave woman. She was, of course, a judge is a brave person. She was also a prophetess, and she led the Israelites into war. So of course she was more like an army leader. And for her, we see a lot of courage. We see a lot of leadership. We see a lot of seeking God. Of course, as a prophet, you hear from God and you relay that information to people. The lesson that we learn from her, and I'd really encourage you to read her story in the book of Judges from chapter 4 to chapter 5. We learn that also women are powerful instruments of God's justice and guidance. Sometimes, and I really wanted to say this at the very beginning. When we read the Bible, there has been an assumption that women are second-class human beings in the Bible. But really, God elevates women even in the Bible. And this is an example where we see a woman is able to lead. She's able to lead people into war. And Deborah worked hand in hand with Barak, and Barak refuses to go to war unless Deborah was there. So I think she had a lot of significance. She was influential. And I mean, what a good position than that for a woman. So the other person and woman that we learn from is Ruth. Ruth was a daughter-in-law to Naomi, and remember, Naomi lost her husband, then her sons, and the other daughter-in-law accepts to go, but Ruth clings to Naomi, and she says, "Your people will be my people, your God will be my God," and she refuses to go back to her people, even when Naomi did not have any more sons, nor did she have a husband. And Naomi tells her, please go to your people, because even if I am to remarry, then those sons will be too young. And also, I don't know when I'll remarry, but she sticks by her. And I think what we can learn there then is her loyalty. Many other times, and there has been there has been word going around where people say, no, women are other women's greatest enemies, which I am not usually for that narrative. I'm usually against that narrative. And we've seen that going around. We see Ruth as a very loyal woman. She didn't abandon her mother-in-law simply because she was of no good anymore, but she stuck by her. She even went ahead and provided for her. Like, she went to glean just to feed her. So that is loyalty, with still also a lot of humility. Regardless of the fact that she was still young, she could have gone and gotten married anywhere else. She's very humble to a point. She starts gleaning. Of course, Naomi says that there's nothing good that they're left with. Naomi had lost a lot, and she sticks by Naomi. I'm sure she did not. Now, by this time, both their husbands were dead, and probably they did not even have supplies of food or a source of livelihood. So that's why probably she's gleaning. But she somehow believed that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. And there was indeed light at the end of the tunnel, because also this is one of the women that is in the lineage of David, and ultimately in the lineage of Jesus, through Obed, Jesse, and all that. So the other woman, and I have my notebook here. Of course, I'm checking my notes just so that I keep on track. So the other woman is Esther. This is the second woman that I really see myself through her eyes, or through her story. And Esther was Jewish, and Esther was a replacement of a queen who had disobeyed the husband. And I've shared that in my previous video. You can go and watch. I really did mention. Esther is an orphan and is left with his cousin to take care of him, and he follows the instructions of his cousin. I think the thing we can learn from Esther is the courage she gathered to, first of all, even to take up on this assignment. You can imagine you're in a foreign land, say you are in another country, and probably they don't even regard your own country. And then you go for a contest for queens, and she wins because she followed, of course, the instructions that she was given by her cousin Mordecai. I think that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of strategy as well, because you can move from contesting in that beauty contest to dying as a foreigner, and also a lot of wisdom, which of course was passed on through to her through her cousin again Mordecai. But more than that, we see someone who's looking beyond a platform. And that is a lesson we learned, that God places us in specific position. And I mentioned this in my previous video, that God places us in specific positions to fulfill his purpose, even in the face of danger. The Israelites were in danger, and it was only Esther who could save them, being in that proximity with the king. However, she also would be in danger just to face the king without being summoned. Regardless, she takes time to pray and fast with her servants. Then she actually does that. So we see her mastering a lot of courage, strategy when it comes to prayer, but also really being wise around it. But for me, it is the fact that she saw her position not just as a way to enjoy herself and to, meet her goals, and I mean to enjoy life, as a queen, but she saw it as a platform to save a whole generation. And I think for me, that is the bigger lesson. Using my platform not just as an end to itself, but as a means to serve God's bigger purpose. Yeah, so that's why I really, really like that story and that character in particular. So the other person is Mary, the mother of Jesus. And for me, when I look at Mary, this is in relation with my quote for the year, which says, "I want what God wants for me." And for her, I don't think being the Savior's mother was anywhere in her long-term goals or short-term goals. She was just a betrothed woman who was ready for marriage. And just saying, when the angel comes to her and she's given the prophecy, and she's like, "But I have no husband," and then she's told the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of God will overshadow you, and you'll be able to conceive a son, and you'll call him Jesus. She takes up that assignment with like immediately. I feel like for me, I'd like to be like her. I'm not yet there. I'm not the kind that I usually have so many questions. I know she asks questions, but I'm those people who, if I don't understand, it's really hard for me to, especially for people. And of course, it translates to God, because that's a nature I have. I'm very inquisitive, and I don't just do things I don't understand. So I think I would want to be like Mary in that aspect. But I think a lesson we learn from her is trusting God's plan, even when it's beyond our understanding, which leads to profound blessings. I think if she would have been like, "No, I don't want this," or "I don't understand, so I don't think I'm going to take it up," I think God would still have moved on. The will of God will still take place, whether you partner with God, you agree to partner with God, or you decide not to. He always moves to the other person, especially when you contend with him so much to the point you really don't want it. And I pray that God would mold my heart to readily accept his will, even when I don't fully understand, but also when it will change my life and turn it upside down in my own eyes and opinion. But far and beyond that, I think what we learn from Mary also is purity. I don't think that Christ would have been born through her if she had not kept herself pure, because we know that she was a virgin. She had walked in a very pure way. And even after the angel of the Lord appears before Joseph, the boyfriend or husband to be, they still choose to remain pure until Jesus is born. So I think purity is such a big lesson that we learn, not only from her, but also really from Joseph. Yeah. So the other person is Mary Magdalene. And what I've learned about Mary Magdalene today is that she was from a land called Magda, which makes me think, when you're called Magdalene, why are you called Magdalene? It's like someone else being called Nyagim, which in Luo means a lady from game, which does not make sense if you're not from there. So I don't know I'm beginning to question why we pick up names, even from the Bible, because these were Jewish. Some of these were really Jewish names. They're not like so much biblical. Some of them are very cultural, and I don't know really what to think about it. Maybe we can be interpreting the names and using them in our own local dialect. Yeah, so today I think what I've learned more about Magdalene is that Mary Magdalene is that she was from Magda. And I feel like laughing at everyone called Magdalene because it says you're from Magdalene, but you're not. You're from Mukurweini, which is a place in Kenya if you're not listening to this from Kenya. But I think what I learned from her is devotion. She was a devoted follower of Jesus, who followed her to crucifixion, and even after. She was among the first people to see her. I think the first person to see Jesus after his resurrection. And I saw, when I was really researching about her, I saw something called she was the apostle of the apostles. Interesting to know. Maybe you can research more about that. But a lesson we learn from this woman is that women are essential messengers of the good news and witness of God's transforming power. Like she saw everything. I think if she was to be one of the people to write the Bible, she would have been able to really write a lot. She was there during the crucifixion, together with Mary, the mother of Jesus. She was there when Jesus was doing miracles, and throughout really the journey of Jesus. And in as much as women might not have been among the 12 disciples, there was some women who were very close to Jesus and even really helped him. We see in the Bible and we read that women really supported his ministry in a really great way. So I believe even today we can learn to be like Magdalene, keep proximity with Jesus, and also help and support his work. And the next woman is Lydia. So Lydia was a successful businesswoman. It said that she was among the first European converts. She was from Europe, and she opened her home to Paul and his companions during the work. And I think for her, we learn about hospitality. And being hospitable is something really good. I feel like I'm not yet there when it comes to hospitality. I've seen people who do better. And also being someone that, especially recently, I usually need a lot of downtime. So most of the time, I feel like I'm not willing to be inviting people over, but I feel like I can learn a lot from her. But generally, we learn that women can use their resources, and women do have resources. It might not be material resources; it could be just the home they have. Yeah, like other women, we learn about, and I'll get to that much later. It can be the time they have. It can be the food they have. Women can still use their resources, skills, influences, and to advance the gospel, just as she did by being hospitable. Yeah. And then the next woman that I want to mention is Hannah. And I'd say like Hannah, like other women in the Bible, motivates me. And the way she motivates me is that you can still remain in the presence of God and in prayer, even when God has not done the thing you're trusting him for. Anna was found praying even when she had not gotten a son for so many years, such that the co-wife was making fun of her. She was called, I think, Penina, and she was crying to God about her son. But over and beyond that, we see her as dedicated to God. And how do we see this? She even dedicates her own son to God. When she gives birth to the son, she tells God that if you bless me with a son, I'll give him back to you. And I think the thing we learn about her is that we should not be found in the place of prayer or just ask God for things. And when we got them, we don't even use the same things to worship God. You ask God for a car, and when you get it, use it for some other things that are actually mockery to God. You ask God for money, and when you get it, you use it to do sin, I think we learned that we can use the very thing that we ask God to bless us with to worship him. The same way he dedicated his only son that he had asked God for, to church. Actually, after winning him, he took him to the temple. He took him to serve God. And you can see how Samuel anointed kings. He was the one who relayed messages to kings, obviously King David, King Saul. Yeah, so when you get the blessing that you're asking God for, remember to take it back to him, because it was his before he gave it to you. The next woman that we learn about is prophetess Anna. I love this woman. This was a woman that was widowed when she was very young, but she did not remarry, but went to be a prophet in the temple for so long, together with Simeon, and together they were waiting for the Messiah. And my prayer and hope is that we will be waiting on the Lord. And I think this is a very good example of course, at some point she was married, but showing that even in whatever situation you can still serve God, because especially for women, there's most of us think that the bigger blessing is marriage. Like the ultimate blessing is marriage, especially when you're single. But we see this woman, she was once married, but she wasn't even married for long. She became a widow almost immediately, but chose to stay in the temple. And I think by staying in the temple, we're told that she prayed day and night. She did so much probably than she had done when married. So there's so much to do even in your singleness, whether you've been widowed, whether you're single because you're yet to be married, for whatever reason, but also really in whatever stage of life you are. There's like the bigger picture is serving the Lord. And moving from that, I think we see her faith, her prayer, which endured for years, and also really the belief that she will see the Messiah. She had that faith, and that's why I think she stayed in the place of prayer for so long. So some of the lessons we see is hope for the coming of the Messiah. That's why, of course, she stayed in the temple. And then the other thing is faithfulness and devotion to God, which led to divine encounter. Of course, by staying at the place of prayer, she was able to see the manifestation of God's prophecies. Yeah. The next woman that I'm going to talk about is the Samaritan woman. Also, this is a woman we all know, but also she's one of the women that people don't like identifying with, because, again, I think it was said that she had many husbands, and even the one that she had wasn't hers. I think five husbands, and even the one that she had wasn't hers, meaning she had a reputation with men. Yeah. But when Jesus comes and meets her, she first of all, she thought Jesus wouldn't be willing to have a conversation with her. But Jesus, over and beyond having a conversation with her, asked for a drink. And after that, Jesus is able to tell her so much about her, and she decides to be a witness. And also we learn that this is one of the first witnesses that, like, she goes and witness to her entire town about her experience with Jesus, and she tells them, "Come and see a man who knows all that I've ever done, or all about me." Yeah, she just calls people to Jesus. And I think what we can really learn from her, or a lesson we can pick from her, is that no one is beyond redemption. Of course, because of her lifestyle, she might have thought, wow. And it's usually said that probably that's the reason why she was fetching water at that particular time when she was fetching water, because maybe people are not willing to mix with her. There's a whole narrative around that. And also being a Samaritan, the Jewish did not love Samaritans, so they would not really interact. So over and beyond being a woman, and being a woman who had a reputation with men, and also being a Samaritan, Jesus interacted with her. So I think we also see that Jesus look beyond what men look at, and Jesus see people as they are, and he meet them where they are. If you're struggling with something, really, Jesus sees you. If you feel like you're not worthy, Jesus thinks that you're worthy to be died for, and that's why he died for you. So the other woman that I'd want to talk about is Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was I think, cousins with Mary, the mother of Jesus, because, again, Jesus and John the Baptist were cousins. So what we learn from Elizabeth is that God's timing is the best. You know that Elizabeth had stayed for years without a child, and just 6 months before 6 months before the conception of Jesus, John the Baptist is conceived, again miraculously. So one of the things that we learn is that God's time is the best and is able to do more than we can think of. If you see the role, if you see the role John the Baptist played, he's the one that baptized Jesus. He came. We usually call him a forerunner. He came before Jesus. He came before Jesus. So just to lay the foundation, that's quite a role if you think about it, to play. So thinking that he had stayed for this many years, I know she had reached a point where she had even given up on having a child, and then she gives birth to a child that plays such a big role. I think it's quite remarkable, and it's a reminder that no matter how long you might have waited for God's blessing or whatever thing you might have waited for, keep trusting God. He will ultimately answer you at the perfect and right time. The next woman that I'm going to talk about is not very known by her name, and that's Moses's mother. Her name is Jochebed, quite a hard name. And I think what we learn from her is motherly love, like love that is saying, I'm not willing to let my child die. Even if they're killing children at this age, I will try, I will risk, I will do anything I can. And of course, not everyone, but I mean, you can take time and read about how he saved Moses, and that's how Moses landed in the king's house. Yeah. What do we learn from her? We learn about a mother's love. We learn about faith. We learn that faith can change the course of things, but just not the course of things for an individual, but a whole generation. The role that Moses played in Israel was so great, and even in the history of the Jews is so big. I don't know. I don't want to profile people or really categorize people or rate people, but I think as someone who led the Israelite out of Egypt into the promised land, of course he didn't make it to the promised land, but really the work he did was such remarkable work, was great work, was a lot. So choosing to save Moses was very important. I think for me, I learned to dare. Many of the times we give up before we look at the mountain and we feel like the mountain is too huge to be brought down. But if only we dared, if only we tried what is within our ability, we'll probably not know of how the rest will turn out to be. So no matter how big a situation looks like, do your part, do the part you can, and let the rest to the Lord. Because if God has a plan, especially concerning your life, I know Moses' mother felt like God did not give me this son only for him to die at, is it 2 years? That wasn't his plan. There's a bigger picture here, and I'll do what I can to save him to the best of my ability. If he dies thereafter, then I did whatever I could. So I pray and hope that with the assignment God has given us, with the gifting, with everything God has given us, with the opportunities, we'll dare, we'll gather courage even in the face of danger and fear and the feeling of defeat, to push slightly beyond, or rather slightly over and above, just so that we can see what God can do with that effort. Yeah. So this is the third woman that I really, really identify with. Her name is Tabitha. The other name is Dorcas. And the reason why I identify with her is because one of my spiritual gifting is not acts of service. Acts of service is a love language. Is what do you call them? Acts of kindness or compassion, everything around that, and mercy. Mercy. So she was a compassionate woman. Tabitha was a compassionate woman, and she used to make garments for people, especially the widow. So when she died, the people asked Peter to raise her from the dead because of the much impact she had done to the community. And knowing the work I do and some of the things I'm passionate about, you'll understand why I would identify with this woman. I've always loved to serve the community and the most vulnerable in the community. And anytime I see people in a very vulnerable situation, my heart goes out for them. And I really identify with this woman, knowing that our labor is never in vain. Over and beyond, of course, she died later. And over and beyond what man can do for you, I think there is a reward in doing good. The Bible say, do not grow weary of doing good, because there is a reward. Paraphrasing, I'll hopefully put the verse here. There is a reward, and we don't do it so that we get a reward, but sometimes I know it can feel burdensome, especially when it costs you money, it costs you time, and also when the people you are doing it for are not appreciative, or probably you get backlash for doing it. I pray and hope that if you are someone who's compassionate, that you'll not grow weary of doing good. Learning from this woman that yes, you might be recognized for what you do, but even if you're not recognized for what you do, you will trust that God actually sees and is a rewarder. He might not reward in this life, but your good works will not be in vain. And I think what we learn from this woman is serving others with love and compassion leaves a legacy. Yeah, when she died, she was remembered for serving others. That's why the community were like, please, Peter, please raise her from the dead. I'll try to rush through the rest of the women very fast. And please note that the flow of this is in no particular order. I think the arrangement is really according to the way the chapters in the Bible are. But I think there are a few that I added at the end that should be coming fast. So the next woman that I want to talk about is the woman with the alabaster jar. This is the woman that cleaned the feet of Jesus with her hair and then anointed it with oil and the spicy oil from the alabaster jar. And when I think that was Judas saw her, or one of the Pharisees said that the oil was so worthy to have, I think, helped the poor, or something of the, to have been sold and to have helped the poor. But Jesus says that she is preparing him to death, towards death, or towards his death. And this looks like she's extravagant in her action. But for her, it was a sign of worship. And David says in Psalms, I will not give to the Lord that which cost me nothing. Not in the Psalms. I think it's in, it could be in First or Second Samuel, or the Kings, First and Second Kings, but I think it's First or Second Samuel. He says that he will not give to the Lord that which cost him nothing. And this woman really demonstrated that it cost her everything to offer her worship to the Lord. And I think what we learned from her, she demonstrated love and a lot of devotion to Jesus, but also it shows that true worship involves giving our best to Jesus regardless of others' opinion. I think there are moments that, and if you look at David, when he worshipped until his clothes came off, people judged him. People will judge you on how you worship the Lord. I usually say when I go to church, I'm a crier when I worship through songs. And I'm those people who will cry with my entire tears. The tears will wash my face and, of course, my mucus and everything. And I usually say, you judge me. You do not know what God has done for me. And not just what he has done for me. I think, who has this song? There is a Nigerian musician who has a song, such a song. If I'm able to, I'll allow you to play, or I'll link it below, that talks about our worship. For me, when I'm worshiping, I do not care how you think of me. I can lie down, I can kneel, I can do anything. I can do anything. God deserves all my worship. And I hope and pray that we will be such worshippers, and not just in songs, but also in the way we do. Whether God tell us worship us, ask us to worship him with our substances, with our life, with anything he asks us to, will not regard it worthy than him. The last people, it's actually a group. I've grouped the two because they more or less played the same role. This is Lois and Eunice. Lois was the grandmother of Paul, while Eunice was his mom. And the two ensured a godly generation. They taught Timothy in the ways of the Lord. I hope I said Timothy. Lois was the grandmother of Timothy, while Eunice was the mother of Timothy. And what we learn from them is that they passed down the faith to Timothy. And I think for me, that's something we can carry with us. Knowing the days are evil, it is very prudent to pass your faith to your children, not by, I don't know how to say it, but more like teaching them putting them in places and spaces where they get to hear about God, but also demonstrating your faith. It's not just about speaking and telling them to go to church, or you have to give, or you have to do this, but also really demonstrating by the way you live. I pray and hope that our children, but also children who see us, they'll see us as people who are faithful to God and people who are pursuing God with, we are working our salvation with fear and trembling. We will say, bring up a child in the way he should grow, and when he's old, he will never depart from it. That's how they brought up Timothy, in such a way that when Timothy was older, Paul only needed to stir up the faith that had been passed down to him by his mother and his grandmother. And it's funny because both of these are women. I wonder whether his grandfather and his father were. But that sounds like typically in our context how it's usually the mothers that tell us to go to church sometimes, and many times the fathers are usually absent. But even as women, I pray that we will play our role so well whenever God places us in those positions to be the people who are directing children in the way they should grow. Generally, we see influence of godly women can shape future generation, and especially of the children. Yeah. So those are some of the women who did remarkable work throughout the scripture. I know we've sung so much about the Proverbs 31, but let's be aware that there are so many women. I've mentioned them in no particular order. Again, I'm mentioning that unless you think that's how I'm categorizing them. Also, I've not mentioned all the women because I've just said what this time could allow me. But there are so many other women, including people like Phoebe, Priscilla. I know you know Priscilla and Aquila. Abigail, who later got married to David. There's the Shunammite woman and the Zarephath woman. All these were very hospitable women. There are so many women in the Bible that we can learn from, and there are also so many women in the Bible that we can learn not to be like, the likes of Jezebel. There's also Delilah. There's Jezebel. There's Potiphar's wife. There are lots and lots of women who did really evil things. I hope that we will learn not to be like them, but we will emulate these women of faith, the 16 that I've mentioned. I'm hoping that I will be able to run a series, and that will be a very long series of all these women, one by one. Like when we start talking about, for example, the woman with the alabaster jar, we'll just concentrate on her for that day. And then we'll learn about her and how she pushed the gospel or whatever she did in her time, in whatever capacity she had, just so that we can also learn to leave a legacy. So basically, that was the women of faith in the Bible. We are celebrating them, and we are giving them our tribute. As we commemorate International Women's Day, we remember these women, we honor them, we honor whatever they did in history, but also in the history of faith. And we hope and endeavor to emulate them in those areas that they showed faith, that they left a legacy, and that they left lessons worth learning and emulating. God bless you so much. I hope you learn a thing or two from them. And I hope we celebrate them and we remember them. But more than anything, I hope that if you are a woman, you live a life that will be worth remembering and worth writing about. God bless you so much. See you on the next one.